We are a group of British Columbia post-secondary instructors, professors, faculty administrators, center managers, educators, and student educators speaking about the complexity, diversity, and richness of the field of early childhood education. Young children deserve an education that respects the incredible diversity of all children and their families. Early childhood educators, as professionals, should have the dispositions and knowledges necessary to walk with children in ways that respond to the complexity of their lives and possibilities for more livable worlds. Join us on this journey as we ponder why should early childhood education be taken up as political and social justice practice? What are the challenges that 21st century children are facing that educators need to take up alongside children?
Early childhood education is a political practice, whether we notice it or not. The dailiness of our lives with children are textured by values and assumptions that privilege particular ways of being in the world over others. Feminist scholars Jennifer Hamilton, Tessa Zettel, and Astruda Neymanis helped me in thinking through this dailiness, a child's presence in the room, their food, their movements, their sweat, the mud on their boots, and the air in their lungs is different from someone else's. And this difference is political because it's exercised and flows within systems of colonial and capitalist power relations. In so-called British Columbia, children are living the consequences of a changing climate differently. So envisioning early childhood education as a practice in social and climate justice as intimately entangled projects would mean taking seriously a concern for this difference as a constitutive force of our pedagogical work.
The challenges that 21st century children are facing that educators need to take up alongside children are challenges that stem from years and years of building an oppressive system that continues to reinforce privileges and disadvantages for particular groups. We can see this in the war and conflict that is ongoing. We can see this locally in the overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous children within the child welfare system. As a Black mother and educator, I consistently think about how heartbreaking and how unfair it is that there are families out there that continue to suffer based on a system that was created years ago and that is outdated but continues to influence how certain children are viewed, certain families are viewed, and how they are treated.
In Kamloops, a group of educators and faculty have been grappling with questions of inheritances for the last 8 months and how we might craft pedagogies that respond to the legacies of settler colonialism, of individualism, of consumerism, and of life under the ongoing threat of wildfires, drought, and climate change. These kinds of questions situate early childhood education as a political and social justice practice because they matter now, but also because they ask, what are the worlds that we want to bring into being?
Any form of education is inherently political. Early childhood education is no different. It is inherently a political practice. It requires for us to be consistently thinking reflectively and ethically about the decisions and choices that we make as educators because they all come from a political intention. Social justice is also another thing that really drives my practice and passion of the field. I think that there often tends to be quite a bit of hesitancy about subjects within the realm of social justice. And there oftentimes feels there to be like pushback or weariness from educators to engage in these subjects, or for families to want their children to engage in these subjects. and discussions around these subjects. But the truth of the matter is that we continue to live in a society that sees injustices, discrimination, inequities, and we face and live in a time of war, racism, ableism, exclusion, climate change, and so on. And children live this, and they have questions and concerns and ideas that they want to discuss, and therefore our curriculum should seek ways of leaning into these questions and finding ways to engage in curriculum that runs parallel to the children's interests, instead of trying to ease away from talking about harder subjects. And this, of course, requires a lot of communication.
Childhood is vulnerable to schoolification, becoming unraveled as measurements, assessments, readying, pre-starts, numeracy, and literacy tug and pull, controlling the limits and freedom of what it means to be a child in this world. Childhood stubbornly resists, clinging to the knit, purl, pattern, and texture of their humanity, their way of being, their way of knowing. Childhood is a wonderful tapestry of design, color, rhythm that weaves into the abstract, the yet to be discovered, to be unfolded, to be ad-libbed.
Change is political. Education is political. And I think when we as early childhood educators can engage with that, we have the opportunity to really look at what we know and who we are, what we can learn together, and how we can allow that to transform not only who we are, but how we practice, what we choose to do together, how we choose to engage with the world, with children. And that kind of transformative change is political. It changes how we see each other. It changes how we live together, what we choose to do, what's important, what we value, what we stand for. And that is very political. When I think about what 21st century children are facing, then change in education and how we treat each other and how we live together is a priority for us moving forward. And we need to come alongside children and take up these big issues and big topics together with curiosity and with the intention to create and move towards more livable futures. That's an exciting part of our field right now, and an exciting part of the community conversations that I've been involved in. So,
education is a political endeavor because our beliefs inform the encounters that we share. In early childhood education, it's so important to remember that there's no one correct way of being in the world, and that what's really important, what really matters, is our networks of relationships.
Early childhood education is a political and social justice practice because whatever kind of classroom we create, we are making the conditions to produce a particular person. When we create classrooms in which children are engaged in free play and we stand back and watch, those are opportunities for children to engage and to learn how to exclude, how to bully. But when we invite our educators, student educators, to think about how can you walk with children, how do you respond when a young child says, "You can't play here, I don't like you, you can't come to my birthday." Those might sound like silly little challenges of young children, but if we change the words ever so slightly, they're the challenges of the world today. Education offers people an opportunity to think together with multiple truths in which there never will be a single truth, but they can figure out new ways to live together in peace with those differences.
Children aren't little humans. They are humans, and they have power and influence over the world. They can make meaningful differences in the world if given encouragement and information. Some challenges children are facing that educators should engage with is the increasing ecological threat facing our planet that children will inherit, racism and sexism, as well as growing media influencing children.
I think the challenges that 21st century children are facing today are the same challenges that we've all faced, where there's an increasing demand for children to become independent individuals, to perpetuate the structure of our society. To me, that is the biggest challenge for our society and for children. We need to find the ways to undermine such strong notions of individualism and work towards collective life where children feel like their voices matter, where they get to grow up as active participants in the world that they live in. Children are living in a complex world. They're not separated from it. They are a part of it. We're all implicated by the politics of our livelihoods, of our communities, of our schools. And if we fail to neglect that aspect, then we're kind of erasing children's existence. We're erasing the worlds that they're stepping into. And children need that from us. They need us to see them as people who belong to this world and not separate from it. That to me feels like an ethical, social justice-focused orientation to working with children.
As educators, we are advocates. We advocate not only for our children and our families, we advocate for our profession and its importance. Advocating has really served our fields in the best way possible. I feel that now we are finally seeing a change in this idea of why we do this and what we value and, how we work with children. And a big part of that is the social justice. We advocate for how we feel, and we've seen that change happens and change is possible. And I think that's something we want to nurture in children too, is if we advocate for things and if we follow through and have this passion and don't give up, change can happen. If the world around children is constantly changing, then our practice also needs to be constantly changing. What we do and why we do it needs to constantly be questioned and challenged, because in order to live in these unprecedented times, we have to adapt and we have to evolve with it. I think that educators really need to take that up alongside children. Don't just stick to this, this is the way it always has been. Change is possible and change is important.
The early years provides an important opportunity to begin social justice practices. Young children are capable of critical thinking, and early childhood education can foster their innate understandings that differences don't have to be viewed negatively. This is a commitment that we can all undertake to help children grow and learn with curiosity and compassion.
Early childhood educators need to know that this work is complex. Early childhood educators need to know how to be bold and how to be advocates for the field, how to demand more. Early childhood educators need to know how to meet children where they are at and where families are at, and be able to walk alongside of and embrace the complex lives that we all live, but that particularly that children and families live. Early childhood educators need to know that they have to be courageous and find their voice and a collective voice, and to find joy in the work that we are doing.